Hey, kia ora. Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1651. Stuff. Yeah, tonight we're talking about stuff. Trying to figure out why I have a wing over here on my hair. I have no idea why it keeps flicking up like that. Yes, I'll have to figure that one out later on. But for now, you just have to put up me being one-winged. All right, so it is here we are. It is a Wednesday evening. I have no idea what to talk about tonight. I've been thinking about it all day. I'm like, well, it's Wednesday, winning Wednesday. Yeah, we could talk about wins. I was like, yeah, no, that's not lighting my fire tonight. And then I was thinking, what else could we talk about tonight? And I was like, I don't know. And then I came and I sat down and I thought, well, let me go on to ChatGPT and see what suggestions it has. And yeah, and I sat down and I happened to open my email there, and there was a very high bill there, that a receipt to say that my gas bill had been paid automatically, and it was over 3 times what I paid last month for gas. And I'm like, wait, what? They want $128 for gas this month. I'm like, what the heck? It cost me $40 last month. And I'm like, okay, it's been cold, but we keep the house cool. At night, the heat doesn't even come on unless the house is down to like 64 or 65. I can't remember what I have it set at. During the day, we might put it up to 68, not 78. 78 is the AC in the middle of summer. To 68 on a cold day like it was today. We put it up to 68. And if you're cold, you put clothes on. You put a sweatshirt on, you put socks on, you put long pants on. You just bundle up if you get cold. We don't have the temperature in the house set around to walk around in t-shirt and shorts, but I did today, and it was set at 68. So I was very shocked to find a $128 bill there instead of a $40 bill. So I don't know, often saying why. So tonight we're just talking stuff. Yeah, I know. Usually I've got some subject worked out that we're going to talk about topic, but tonight I am just exhausted, to be honest. I am so tired right now. I am trying to get to bed at a decent hour, and for some reason it's not working. I even have an alarm set off to go off at 21:50. And if anybody doesn't know what 21:50 minutes, it's 10 minutes to 10 minutes to 10 or 9:50 p.m. It's 21:50, 10 minutes to 10. It's set off to go then to remind me to go to bed. It can sometimes take me over an hour to get moving from here. I could be in the middle of watching an episode of like Pretender, which we're working our way through right now. Last night we did Father Brown, then we did an episode of Pretender, and then we went to bed. But we were in bed by 10:30, so that wasn't too bad. And I had my sleep patch on. Boom, I was out. That was a good night's sleep. But I was just very tired today. And then I figured out what it was, is that I didn't get my mushroom coffee. It was really yummy coffee, which is designed to help keep a healthy gut, and it has mushrooms in it. And I had run out of creamer yesterday, and I haven't been to the market, and I don't have time to go to the market unless I go in the evenings, which I really don't want to do because I have problems with night vision. So having to drive in the dark is not the brightest idea for me to do. I have astigmatisms in both eyes, and it causes me to have trouble driving at night, even with my glasses on. And I even have those yellow tinted ones that help when you've got bright lights coming towards you. And so many people drive with their lights on high beam. What's with that? There's a little switch there that flips it down. And then that's driving. That's another thing too. So when you're driving, on your steering wheel column, there is a lever. In the US, it is on the left-hand side. In New Zealand, it's on the right-hand side. And if you want to turn left, you push it down. In New Zealand, you push it up. And if you want to turn right, in New Zealand, you push it down. And in the US, you lift it up. And when you engage it in an up or down position, outside your vehicle, these little lights start going tick, 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 to tell people behind you, we're going to be turning. And I'm surprised at how many people don't use turn signals. But the funniest one I've seen, though, is that somebody's sitting in the left-hand lane. They've got the left indicator. No, hang on. They're driving down the road. They put the left turn signal on, and they go right. Explain that one to me. You're indicating you're going to go left and you go right. I'm like, what is it with people and driving these days? I don't know. Or they're sitting in the left turn lane and the left turn lane signal comes on and they just sit there and sit there and sit there and sit, and even though people are honking at them and they won't move because they were supposed to go right or straight ahead. And they can't go straight ahead because the light's not on green to go straight ahead. And as soon as the light turns green, they go straight ahead, causing other cars to slam on brakes and horns to go. And they don't have a care in the world. They just want to go straight ahead. They didn't want to turn left. So we've lost our left turn signal now, our left turn light thing. It's interesting watching people drive. Yeah. My theory is that if they don't use turn signals, they got the cheaper version where turn signals were optional extras and they didn't want to fork out the extras for turn signals. That's my theory and I'm sticking to it. You know, everybody has their own theories on things. So what else? So tonight we're just going to talk stuff because I have no idea what I was going to talk about today. Like I said, I was going to try ChatGPT to see what suggestions it had. I sat down and there was that $128 gas bill. I'm like, why is my gas bill $128? There's only Zeffie and I in the house. We don't have the heat going that much. It's designed to come on when the house hits 65 in the winter time. And this house is pretty insulated. So during the day, it's not going that much. In fact, during the day, it's sitting at 68. At night, it goes down to 65. But it's not going that much to, in fact, do I even have gas heating? That's a good thing. I'm renting this house, so I have no idea if I have gas heating in the house or not. But I do have solar panels. They put installed solar panels. That makes it a little easier, nicer on the electrical bill. Although they did turn up to test it the other day because apparently the solar panel wasn't sending the signal to the office or something, so they could charge you for the solar power. And it turned out the antenna wasn't plugged in properly. Oh, yay, I got free power out of the solar panel for a little bit there, so without even knowing. So that was pretty cool. Other stuff, books. What are your favorite books? What books do you like to read? I read a variety of books. In fact, I am just re-listening to The Power by Rhonda. Shoot, can't think of her last name. She wrote The Secret, and she's got a whole series of books. This one's called The Power, and it's all about everything coming from a place of love. And every now and I listen to that at least 3 or 4 times a year. And so this is my first time for this year that I'm listening to it. Because I just like to reset. And sometimes I listen to it more than once. I'll listen to it, go all the way through it, and then go back to the beginning and start all over again. Or I might just go to certain chapters and listen to it because I find that I need to remind myself that everything comes from a place of love and gratitude. And so I'm thankful. Thankful I have heat, even if it cost me $128. So I'm so like, that one just baffles me. I've never had a gas bill. Just trying to think. I have never had a gas bill be 3 digits. Even when we were living back east, where we had snow on the ground and we had gas heating. And we had a 4,000 square foot home. I'm trying to remember. I don't even think we went into, if we did, it was low 3 digits. It was maybe 105, 110, somewhere around there. It was really, really cheap for a 4,000 square foot home. And I'm in a 2,200 square foot home. So I'm in half the size of the house I was back in Virginia, and the gas is costing me more in Arizona than it did in Virginia. Go figure. So I sent a note off to the thing, being like, are you sure this is correct? Because I don't get how I can be 3 times higher than I was last month. So anyway, we are now flushing the gas bill thing for now until I hear back from the vendors to say, this is what we got told. Well, I don't think they're right. Anyway, what other subjects could I talk about? There's books, there's films, there's movies. Now, those of you who have been following me for a while know that for 4.5 years, I lived in an RV full time. And during that time in the RV, I had with me 500 DVDs that were in 2 binders that had room for the DVD player along. It had DVD player on one side, and it had a place to put the information from the jewel case on the other side. So I always knew what DVDs were what, because some of them come out blank and just have this little tiny itty bitty writing around the circle in the hole in the middle. So that was my entertainment. And I thought I had gone through all my DVDs. So I'm cleaning out the guest room because when we moved in here, there's a lot of boxes that had to be sorted. Some of them had not even been opened since we were in Virginia, and we left Virginia in 2010. So some of them have been sitting in storage for like 12 years. In storage at the house first, and then in storage in a storage unit once I moved out of the house that we were renting in San Diego. And I'm going through these boxes that are sitting in the guest room, and they've got DVDs written. I'm like, what do you mean you've got DVDs? I'm opening boxes of DVDs, and I am like, where did all these DVDs come from? I had no clue where all these DVDs. And I'm like, I remember the titles. I remember purchasing those titles. I remember we had them in Virginia. And then I look at the outside of the box, and it has the mover's name from Virginia on the outside of the box. So we have boxes of DVDs sitting in our garage in San Diego for years until I got here. And now I'm opening these boxes of DVDs of movies and stuff. So we're going to be having some movie fests come up, because there's a lot of really cool movies in there. And I'm going to do a month of like the classics. I've found Breakfast at Tiffany's, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, North by Northwest, Rear Window. What are some of the other ones I found? Some of the other ones I found in there. Oh, there was a whole bunch of musical ones like Oklahoma, Hello Dolly, Sound of Music's in my binder. Hello Dolly wasn't in the binder. So there's Hello Dolly, Oklahoma, State Fair. What other musicals were in there? Sound of Music is in the binder. Cats. So we might do a month of musical movies. The musicals, the classic musical ones. So I've got classical movies in there. I've got the musicals in there. What other ones were there? Was some action ones in this one. I'm going to do a month of action. Might do trilogies over the weekend, like do a Back to the Future trilogy, do a what was the other trilogy I found? Jason Bourne, that's 4 movies. Because you got the 4 movies, because there was that extra one they did with oh jeepers, I can see his face. Jason Bourne doesn't actually isn't actually in the movie, but he's mentioned several times. But this guy was part of Treadstone. I can't even think what the movie's called. But there would end up being 4 of those. So I might do a Jason Bourne movie fest one weekend. Let's see. In March, I'm still trying to decide for Brad's birthday whether to do a Lord of the Rings trilogy, a Hobbit trilogy, a Star Wars trilogy. And I know I've got 6 Star Wars movies, but we have we always, when movies came out that Brad really liked, like Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, the first 6 episodes of Star Wars, he liked to get, when the collector series came out, he wanted to get the director's extended cut versions of all of these movies. So those are the ones that we have. So like Lord of the Rings, just the 3 movies for Lord of the Rings is excuse me, with just the movies is almost 12 hours. It's like 10 or 11 hours, I think it is. Because the movies are all well over 3 hours into the 3. And I think the Lord of the Rings trilogy is like 11 hours of movie time. So that's a full day if you start early. We have done it in one day. It was a struggle, but we got through it in one day. We started at like 9 o'clock in the morning. We didn't finish till but like around 10 o'clock that evening. But that was because we stopped for meal breaks, snack breaks, bathroom breaks, dog walk breaks. So we had things scattered throughout the day just to give us breaks in, so we weren't just sitting there the whole day. And between each movie, we would have like about a 30-minute break between the movies. So yeah, so we started at like 7 in the morning and went to like 10 at night, something like that. Yeah, that was a very long day. Very long day. I don't think I've ever done a movie trilogy like that before. And with the Star Wars ones, it's either watch the first 3 episodes or watch the original 3, which is the next 3 episodes. I kind of like the originals. I like the original 3 movies. In fact, Brad went to the opening of the original Star Wars in 1977, dressed as a character. Him and his friends went to the opening of Star Wars in 1977, dressed as characters from Planet of the Apes. And I still have the purple. He had a purple vest that he wore, which is actually from one of the Planet of the Apes movies, from one of the characters that were one of the actors in there. So he actually has this purple vest that was an original from that movie. that he wore that day as well. Somewhere around I have photos of them all doing like all the makeup, because him and his friend learned how to do the actual makeup that they use in Planet of the Apes with the facial pieces and all of that sort of stuff. So have some really cool pictures of those with him and his mates doing the makeup, doing the makeup, and then getting dressed to go down to watching the opening of Star Wars. So just cool little things like that. Just lots of little things. So yeah, so I found 3 boxes of DVDs. 3. And I'm like, there's got to be more than just DVDs in here. No, it's just DVDs stacked into these medium-sized boxes. So I don't know, there may be about another 100, 150 movies in there. I don't know. I know the collector ones of Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Hobbit, Back to the Future. What's that other series? There was another trilogy in there that he liked to watch. Those ones, those collector items are in there because I didn't want to take them out of their original cases, because they came in the nice cases. They had the little booklets that went with them. So I kept them together and those got packed. So that box we found, and I knew that box was there, but that's separate from the other 3 that we found. So there's actually 4 boxes of DVDs, but one just is full of like collector sets and that sort of stuff. And there's a really cool series in there, Earth to the Moon. I think that's what it's called. And it's about the space journey, the space race to get to the moon. And I think it has stuff in there about Apollo 13 as well. It came out around the same time that Apollo 13 came out. That's a really cool movie. That was not in my binders. That's in one of the boxes. So yeah, there's lots of different movies, and of course I've been finding boxes and boxes of books. I just can't let go of books. I love my books. I just cannot let go of my books. I love my books. And yes, I did get rid of a lot that I hadn't even cracked open. But I still have some that I haven't cracked open yet, and some that are very well loved, very well read. Some of them have multiple different colors of highlighters in there. On the nonfiction ones, when I read, I sit there with highlighters, and I use these Pen Plus Gear gel highlighters. And the reason I use these gel highlighters is because they're solid and they don't bleed through the pages. So if you want to help find them, look for Bible highlighters, because people, when they highlight their Bibles, because the Bible pages are so thin, they need things like these gel ones that don't bleed through the pages. So I have different colors. I've got pink and purple, green and yellow and blue and orange. And so every time I start reading a nonfiction book, one that I am going to mark up, like it could be a business book, it could be a self-development book, I pick a color highlighter, and that's the color that I use through reading that time. And in the front of the book, I put the color highlighter, and I put the date I started in that one. And I also try and match it up with pens. You know, like you get these multicolored ones that have the multicolors on them. I try to match up the colors. So if I'm writing notes in the margin, it's in the same color as the highlighters. And then I have Post-it notes as well, like my Post-it notes. Post-it noteaholic, this girl. And I have little square. And somebody said, "Do you know what those are?" At times, I'm like looking at this one book, going, "Yeah," because I never use the same colors for the same thing every time, because it depends on the book. And I said, "Yeah," I said, "I know what they mean. I know what the meaning is behind each color that's there. I just got to open the book and read the area that they're tagging, so I can figure out exactly what they're for." I said, because depending what book I'm reading as to what the different Post-it notes mean. And she's like, "Oh, you don't have them?" I says, "No, because it depends what book. If I'm reading a book on DNA, I'm going to be using the colors in a different way on the DNA book than if, DNA and genealogy. I'm going to be using the colors on that book a different way than I would use the colors in The Universe Has Your Back, or Think and Grow Rich, or whatever the other ones are I have out there. I have a lot of books. Did I mention I like books? I have a lot of books. So I use Post-its, and sometimes I wrote notes on the Post-its and stick them in there, and other times I just use them to flag that page. And when I go in, that Post-it note matches up with a highlighter color, because sometimes in some books I actually use multiple colors for highlighters, because I want something that's in there in a different highlighter, because I need it to stick out, because it could be an exercise to do, it could be a quote that I like, It could be a way to do something. So it depends on what it is. But things like Think and Grow Rich. Yeah, I read that book several times. And every time I read it, it gets a different colored marker. And I've worn that one out. I've worn out several copies of The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. That's an interesting book. I'm trying to remember when it was written. I know when the book was written, he said in the book, he says, I wish I could remember the publishing date of that book. Because in there he mentions that they were talking about building a tunnel under the water between England and France. And I'm like, if I remember correctly, it was in the 60s, I think that book was published. Because I remember reading that and then going and having to look to see when did the channel open and when was this book published? And it was like a 30 to 40 year gap between when they first came up with the concept and first started talking about it to when they actually opened the channel. So that was interesting to read that book on the magic of thinking big and about how big to make your dreams. And, yes, some people have little goals and that's fine, but you got to scale up your goals as well as you're going through life, because some people play it safe and we're just going to do this whenever because we know we can do it. And it's like, no, the idea of goals is to stretch yourself and grow and go through challenges and things. There's been a lot of challenges I've been through in my life. And I think one of the easiest things I found it, I didn't have too much of a problem with this, and that was learning to drive my RV. I have a 32-foot Fleetwood Bounder. It's a Class A. It's a gas engine, so it has the hump between the two front seats. Zeffie liked to sit in the captain's seat. She had a bed down on the floor between the seats, and she would put her head on the hump in the middle, which is the top of the engine. And you can actually open that panel to access and do things like oil changes and stuff, because the dipstick in there is so long. When you're standing outside and you've got the panel open at the front to access the engine, you're having to pull the dipstick out on this really weird angle. So you can take this panel off the top of, they call it the doghouse inside the RV, and you can then reach down into the engine and you can pull up the dipstick that way. It's a very long dipstick. It was probably about 3 feet long, I think it was. So that's how I learned to check the oil on that. Plus there's other areas at the top of the engine that it just makes it so much easier if you've got that access panel at the top. But that would get very hot during the day when you were driving, and Zeffie would just lay there with her head resting on it. But she would be over on the side and her head would be resting on it closest to me. So while driving, I could just reach down and give her scratches and things like that. And sometimes she'd sit up next to me. Sometimes she'll get up on the chair and just look out the window. She was buckled in, and her seatbelt didn't allow her. She has a harness on, and it's hooked onto the back of her harness. And her seatbelt didn't allow her to jump up onto the dashboard, which was her favorite place to be. And so she learnt she learned a couple of valuable lessons a couple of times when she forgot that she was buckled in and she can't get on the dashboard when she's buckled in. So she, learned the hard way on those. Like she'll take this flying leap and just drop. And then she'll get up, shake herself off and look at this thing and then look at me and go, nope, we're driving. She did not like driving through campgrounds at 10 miles an hour while buckled up. And we're getting ready to leave that campground. She'd be buckled up and she'd be sitting on the passenger, and she kind of sat on the passenger seat and just kind of like lounged there back against the backrest of the seat, and she would whine as we went through the thing because we're doing 10 miles an hour. Now, when we got to our next campsite, and once we had checked in and we were going to the site, she was allowed to be unbuckled and she could be up on the dashboard, but the condition of her being on the dashboard was she had to lay down, because if she stood up, I couldn't see my side mirror. And so when we got to the campground, she was allowed to lay up there on the dashboard and watch as we went to our site. So she couldn't understand why she couldn't do this when we left the campground. And so she would whine until we got out on the road and we picked up speed, and then she'd just settle back down again. She was so funny. Miss Bo, good morning from Thailand, she's saying. Well, good evening from Arizona. Welcome. I have a workmate who dials in from Thailand every day. He takes over from me when I finish my shift. So good morning. It's just somebody that's popped on from TikTok and left us a message. So there was stuff like that, and learning to drive the RV was not that hard. And people go, but you got 33 feet behind you. I'm like, yeah, I know. And they said, don't you find that difficult? I'm like, no. I said, I actually found the 32-foot RV easier to drive than my husband's GMC Yukon. Yeah, think about that. It's a big deal. And he had the power steering, and it had a very tight turning radius on the Yukon. And I will admit, it was a very comfortable ride for long distances. It was very comfortable to drive for long distances, but I hated driving it around town because it was so big. I just had my little Forester Subaru, my Subaru Forester that I loved. I had it, we bought it brand new in August of 2004, and then I sold it in January of 2020 before I hit the road in the RV, because I couldn't, the only way I could have it go with me was to have a trailer on the back of the RV. And yeah, me and trailers, I've never gotten the hang of driving. I have driven straight with a trailer. When we moved from Virginia to California, we drove across the US and we had a U-Haul trailer on the back. The entire back area of the Yukon, we had the seats laid down, and that was Gus's area. And Gus was our dog before Zeffy, and Gus was part Bernese Mountain Dog, part German Shepherd, part something else, but he had these massive paws. His paws were the size of the palm of my hand. He was a big boy. He was 114 pounds. Zeffy's just under 40. Big size difference. And so he basically got the whole back of the Yukon, except we had a little piece at the back there that had the temperature sensitive stuff because we were driving in June across the US. And in the U-Haul, we had like his crate, we had our night bags for in the evenings and things like that. And but in the back there, we had like the computer cases with the laptops in them, and we had a container that had the actual computers, desktop computers in there as well. So we had that stored in the very back of the Yukon, but Gus got the rest of it. How did I get on to Gus? But oh yeah, so when we're driving, Brad was like, I need a break. Do you want to switch driving? I'm like, okay. So all I had to do is we would pull into the truck parking area and the rest areas, because we couldn't park in a regular parking space. So we'd pull into the pull-throughs that the truck drivers have, pull into those pull-throughs and park and have our break and all that. Then I would get in the driver's seat and drive, and I just had to go forward. I didn't have to do any backing up. I didn't have to do any fancy turning. And then when it came time to us to switch again, we would just pull into a rest area, pull into those truck parking spaces and switch drivers. So I only ever had to drive forward, never backwards, because I've never figured out how to drive backwards with a trailer. That's something I have never learned. And I didn't want to have to do that with an RV. Yes, an RV with a trailer on the back, with a car sitting on top of the trailer. Yeah, that was sort of like, yeah, no. So unfortunately, we had to let Animal go. It was a red 2005 Forester, Subaru Forester. It was a 2XS. No, it was an XS model, the XS model. Yeah, it was a 2005 Subaru Forester XS. It was red, and so I called it Animal. At that time, I was calling all my vehicles were named after Muppets, and Brad's was a dark blue Yukon, so that was what was that? Grover the Beast. I was trying to figure out what we called it. And we had a green minivan at one point, and that was Oscar. My very first car was a bright yellow Ford Cortina back in New Zealand, and it's like a four-door sedan, and that was Big Bird. And then I had the Swedish Chef, because I had a white Holden Barina, which is like a Suzuki Swift. I had a white Holden Barina, and that was white, so that was a Swedish Chef. So yeah, I've named my car, and then I got Sparkles. Sparkles is my RV, and I know Sparkles is not a Muppet name, but if you look at the Fleetwood Bounder, Fleetwood Bounder's logo is Kanga and Roo from Winnie the Pooh. And so I couldn't call it a Muppet name. And I was like, what am I going to call this? And so I like my Sparkles. So Sparkles it became. And so I still have Sparkles. It sits in a storage area right now, and still unpacking stuff from there. It's a little bit left to go. And so I'm thinking I might pull it out one day and bring it over to the house and get all the unpacking done, and then park it back there and get it ready for sale, because I'm thinking I might sell it. So, things like that. But anyway, I've done enough gas bagging for now. On stuff. This was just random stuff to talk about. Let's see. Any other stuff? Yeah. But yeah, driving the RV was not a problem. I was able to do U-turns in the thing. If the road was wide enough, I could do U-turns in it. I backed it. Backing it was no problem at all. There was the best back reversing job I ever did in the RV was at it's a place called Champagne Lakes. It's just north of San Diego on the 15, just off the 15. And they said, oh, you're going to be in the amphitheater. I went, okay. And they said, we're going to take you up there, and we have to guide you into the campsite. I went, okay. And they showed me on the map where it was. I'm like, that sounds fine. That sounds good. It was, yeah, there wasn't any room to turn around down bottom. So you had to back into the space, and they were going to guide me in. I'm like, okay, they said it's going to take 2 of us. And I'm like, okay, fine. And so not thinking about this, we drove up to the area. I followed the golf cart. They said, we're going to have you pull over to the side of the road first, and we're going to wait for this other person to turn up. I went, okay. And when that's done, we're going to put you into the campground. I went, okay. And then when we got there, they said, oh, do you want to come and see where your campsite is? I went, no, we're fine. And I said, so I've got you two guiding me. And I said, so just so you know, my camera every now and again goes out. So, and they said, that's fine, because we're going to have, the guy was walking, he was going to be walking next to the driver's window, and the woman was going to be at the back yelling directions, and he was going to translate. Well, not translate, but pass the message on so I could hear her in the back through him. And if I had gotten out of that RV, I tell you this afterwards, if I had gotten out of that RV and walked down where the campsite was, I would not have backed it. I would have not have done it. I would have said, I need a different site. What this thing involved was taking a 32-foot RV, Class A, in reverse, down a hill. And when you get partway down the hill, I think you came down the hill, and as you came down the hill, you had to start turning, and then I was going to be parking between 2 trees. And the fit between and where the trees were when I parked through them, they were narrow enough that I could not get the slides out between the trees. So we had to park it so that the slides were clear of the 2 trees I was parking between. And we had to go down this. And I will tell you this, that was I wasn't actually scared at the time doing it. I was just, I think I was more in shock than anything else. But I had the guy next to me who was saying, okay, we're going to take it easy. This is what we're going to do. And I went, okay. And we never had to put it into first gear to go forward. We never had to do any shuffling with it. We literally came down the hill, and we're coming down. He says, okay, now you need to start turning the wheel towards the left, because we need to start going back to line up to go between the trees. We're still on the steep hill. It's a steep hill. I will tell you how steep this hill was. I'm going backwards. The next thing I feel like is that I almost feel like I'm laying completely flat on my back, pushing my foot up on the brake. That was physically, that was difficult, but I wasn't that much of a slope, but it was a steep slope to go down. And then at one point he tells me to stop, and he reaches up. There was a fifth wheel here with an umbrella set up, and he reaches up and he turns the umbrella just like a couple of inches so that the point of the umbrella would not hit my mirror. And so we come down and go, and he gets us to start turning in between the trees, and they're directing me. I'm just following directions. That's literally all I'm doing. It's just making sure I'm taking it slow. I am following directions. And we got between the 2 trees. I said, okay, where are your pullouts? And I said, well, one's at the back for the bedroom on the passenger side. I said, there's one here on the driver's side that starts behind my seat where I am. And they're like, okay. And so they stopped it so that I was in the driver's, when I was looking out the side window, I was looking at a tree. And there was no way I could have gone back any further, because it would have hit my mirror. And on the other side, it was the same thing. My mirrors would have been taken out by these 2 trees. And they said, okay, can you come and check this? So I put it in park and everything out, went out to check to make sure, because they had some utility poles there, and were they clear of the push out on the driver's side. And so I went out there and said, yep, we're good. We didn't have to move. We down the hill, and one stop to turn that little umbrella, and then straight into the parking thing. And afterwards, after they left and all that, and I got the feet down, got everything set up, I went out there and I walked back up this hill. It was a steep hill to walk up. And I'm just like looking at this thing going, oh my goodness, I made it down that hill. And I stood there and I did this Facebook Live about coming down this hill and showing them I had to come down here and come in. Look, this is where I'm parked. And it was it was a beautiful setting. There was a fifth wheel behind me that had been there for a long time. There were 2 other fifth wheels that were straight ahead. One was the one that had the umbrella, and they were like nose to nose on those things. And I'm like thinking, man, they've got 4 vehicles. They've literally had to pack into the space. But then I had like 1 or 2 nights there before I had to go up to LA to pick up my parents, because they were flying in, and then we're going to do this big drive. We did did 3,227 miles in 27 days in an RV. It was a lot. We went from California, we went from San Diego to Vegas, Vegas to Moab in Utah, Moab, Utah to Salt Lake City, Utah. From Salt Lake City, we went to Boise, Idaho. From Boise, Idaho, we went to Plymouth, Washington. From Plymouth, Washington, we went to some place in the WAPS, in the back of beyond, north of Seattle. Then from there, we went up to Vancouver, British Columbia. From British Columbia, we went down to Portland, Oregon, and we were in suburb of Portland, Oregon. From there, we went down to, we went from one end of Oregon to the other and stayed in, it's the same name as a place in Florida. Can't remember the name, but we stayed there for the night. That was an interesting one because all of the parking spaces were, or the campsites were along the river were pull-in. So you actually drove in. So your view of the river is out the front of the window. And then we had to back out the next day to leave. From there, we went to Redding, California. From there, we went to Beyond, the back of Beyond for that place. We actually drove from Redding down, stopped in Solvang for the day in California. There, they happened to have all the main streets closed off because there's massive classic car show on while we were there. And so we went to this restaurant place that Brad and I had been to before that had those round apple pancake thingies that they're known for. Had lunch, had the desserts. Mum and Dad liked those. And they actually had RV parking up near the council buildings, which was really cool. And so we walked back up to where we parked the RV, and then we headed off to this campground. Now, we had no reservation for this campground. It was a Thousand Trails campground. It was beyond the back of Beyond. We get up there. We drive 2 miles into this national park. Then we had to turn onto this road that was very narrow, very windy, lots of hairpin turns. And I'm like thinking, if there's another car coming towards us, I don't know, or an RV coming towards us, I don't know where we're going to go. Now, with this campground, I tried to book it online. They said there was limited availability, and the offices were closed on the weekend, so I couldn't call to book. And so I thought, well, we're just going to show up. We're only there for one night. It doesn't matter. We're going to be fine. And in some places, there were areas where you could pull over far enough that another vehicle could get past you, which we had to do a couple of times. So we finally get, and so it's like 2.5 miles of this windy, hilly, twisted, turny track thing in a 33-foot RV that we got to the gate of the thing and passed over my membership card for Thousand Trails. And he turns around and says, oh, what's the name of the reservation? I says, we don't have a reservation. The guy looks at me and he says, you drove all the way out here without a reservation. I went, yep. I said, my water tank's full. We just emptied the black tank and we just emptied the black tank and the gray tank. So we don't need any hookups for those. We don't need a hookup for the water. We've got the fresh water tank full. I said, we only need it for the one night. And on the website, it wouldn't let me book. It said you had limited availability. And he's like, okay. So he told us this one area that we could go that they had spaces, and we ended up in this one space that we could find because Thousand Trails, when you go there, it's first come, first serve. You pick whatever site you want. So he sent us over to this one area that had limited hookup, so we could hook up the power. And that's basically what we told him. We said, all we need is power. And so we went and we hooked up the power. There was a fresh water supply there, but of course, our tank was full, so we didn't need that. And we also happened to be next to all the toilets and the showers for the tent area, and the tent area was over to our left, and there was a church group that was there, and Dad quickly figured out the timing of when they had to be ready and when he could go into the bathroom in the building in the bathroom rather than using the toilet in the RV, and he comes back out of there and I says, how was it? He turns around and says, well, he says, there's 3 stalls there, only one has a door. I'm like, okay. So he figured out his timing to go in there so he didn't have to contend with all the campers that were over in the tent area. And there was a big church group there. And they had there was this big circular area for the tents. They had tents all the way around it. And they were doing all their thing. And then they had some area they would go off to do, their services or something, because you could hear all the singing coming and you're looking out the window and there's nobody in the actual campground area. They'd gone off to some other part of the thing. We had no Wi-Fi where we were. the guy told, and I says, do you guys get Wi-Fi service? Because my phone said no service. And this was during the very beginning days of me starting to do a live every single day, because I've been challenged by Casey in July of 2019 to do a Facebook Live every day for a year. And I went, okay. And so we started it on August 1st, which was when my parents came. My parents came over August 1st. Oh, no, that was the first day that we left on our 27-day journey. So I started it that day. So we're out the back there. There's no Wi-Fi, no cell service, no, zero thing. We had the DVD player. We had the DVDs. We could watch a movie. We had power cookup. We were good. We were fine. Not a problem. We had a full tank of gas, of propane gas that was full. So we were fine for. I mean, if we decided to boondock, we were okay. We're all great readers, so we could have sat there and read if we wanted to. We had plenty of batteries for the flashlights, and so we could read by flashlight if we wanted to. We had lamps that worked off the house batteries for when you're boondocking. So we found ways to entertain ourselves that evening. We happened to put movies on. But it was a really cool, fun experience, that sort of thing. And the next day we, of course, drove that 2.5 mile windy, twisty, up a hilly road back out into the thing. So what I did that evening is, because I couldn't do my live, I actually, at the time that I was supposed to do the live, I went and recorded my live for that day. And then the next day, when we got into an area where we had cell service and we're at a rest stop, I did the upload onto Facebook at that point. So that was how that's how we got around. If you're trying to do a Facebook Live every day and you're in an area where you have no cell service, how do you keep that going? You record it at your normal time, and then as soon as you get cell service the next day, you will upload it. Now, they said we do have boosters, and they're over here. And it's like he's showing me on the map. He goes, you're going over to this area over here, and over here. And I go, and how far is it? He goes, oh, it's about a mile walk across the thing. And I'm like, yeah, in the dark, not happening. And it may work, it may not work, it may work, but he didn't think it would be strong enough to do streaming on it. Enough to check your email, and that would be about it. So it's like, yeah, no, we're out of here. So anyway, that was a very good experience. And so we left there, drove through Santa Barbara, and went down to this place. What's that place called? There is a place on the 215 where there is an airbase of some sort there with warbird planes. They haven't started building a museum there yet, but they built this brand new campground. It was an absolutely brand new campground. It was, this is one of this. It was a very, very clean and very well done and everything else. And it was beautiful. It was brand new. And we ended up staying there for the night before heading down back to San Diego. And on the way back to San Diego, I'm driving along. We're on the 15. We're heading south. We are like 15 to 20 minutes from the campground that we're going to. We're about to hit the hills just before you get into San Diego. So we're leaving Temecula, about to hit the hills that you have to go over to get to San Diego. And I'm not in the right-hand lane. I'm in the next one. In the right. So there's a truck in the right-hand lane that I'm pulled out to overtake. I'm getting ready to, in the process of overtaking this truck, my wing mirror out on the driver's side, it's got two portions to it. So there's a big portion, which is your regular mirror, and you can adjust it electronically. It has a little heater thing on, and below it is the fisheye one. The big flat one, just suddenly, I look out the mirror, everything's going fine. I saw a flash of movement in my eye, in the corner of my eye. I turn and look, and now my flat mirror is hanging by wires. And I'm like, oh crap. And so put on the brakes, pulled in behind this truck, found somewhere to pull over onto the shoulder. And Dad jumps out with my little foldable footstool and goes around and checks out the mirror and that. I find the duct tape, and he literally duct tapes my mirror into place. And it kind of is at the best angle he could possibly do it at. But on that trip, on the way back, when we're heading back south after we left Vancouver, and we're in Portland, and we open up the door to step out, and the steps don't go out. I'm like, what the heck is going on with this? And so we had a mechanic came out and had a look at the steps for us. Thankfully for our roadside assistance that we had with Good Sam, the guy came out to have a look at the steps, and the motor was shot in it. And he said, it's going to take me a couple of days to get one. And I said, we're not running here overnight. And he said, like, okay. And so we had the little foldable, we had a little step stool that folded up flat that would sit behind the recliner, which was right by the door. So Dad would always get out first and then open up this stool and put it there, and then hand us down. So, being the whole gentleman thing, putting his hand up there so Mum had something to hang on to, as well as the handle on the side, and step down, and then I would do the same thing. And he would help us step up onto the stool, and then we could step up inside. So by the time I got to San Diego, I had no working steps. I had a mirror that had fallen off. I had a generator generator problem came along later. And I had an AC that was starting to pack it in. So after my parents went back to New Zealand, and I'm still at this one campground, I was there for a couple of months, I think it was. And so after they had flown back to New Zealand and stuff, I then found a really cool repair place and went in and said, here's all my insurance information, my warranty, extended warranty information with Good Sam and everything else. And they ended up doing over $10,000 worth of repairs to the RV. And out of that, I paid less than $1,000. That was worth my copay in there, plus the stuff that that wasn't covered under the warranty. My out of there was just under $1,000. So I thought that was well worth getting that insurance, because it was over $10,000 worth of repairs. We ended up replacing the back AC unit. We ended up replacing the whole step mechanism, everything, because it was the motor and the steps. The whole thing there got replaced. My mirror got replaced. What else got done? There was a whole bunch of stuff that got done that we found on the road trip and everything else. And so they went in there and cleaned it all up. And then they even stood there and gave me instructions on, now, when you use your AC, you're supposed to use, this is how you use your AC to get the best efficiency out of it while you're in there. And so, yeah, it was really, those guys, here I come, a single female driving an RV, and those guys were absolutely amazing. They didn't look, oh, here comes a female, add on a few dollars. No, these guys were amazing. They have a guy that works with all the warranty, different types of warranties for RVs and everything else, they literally go to bat for you to get as much covered under the warranty, as they possibly can, to make your bill as small as possible at the end of the day. And they did a ton of work on Sparkles after that road trip. And then after that road trip, I then ended up having to replace the two front tires, because the two front tires were actually flat in an area. So I got the wheel alignment done, and I got two new front tires. The back four were okay, but the two front ones needed to be replaced. So got them replaced, got the tires all balanced and everything else. And it took the shaking out of, because if I hit between 50 and 55, there was a shaking that would start. And if I went over 55, it calmed down, which was okay when you're driving on the main roads and stuff, and your top speed is 63. I would set the thing at 63. But anyway, that's it. I'm out of here. I rabbited on for long enough about stuff. So go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we will be back tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hey, konera.